I want to welcome you to this regular called meeting of the Temple City Council. It is currently 5 minutes after 5. Please stand as for the invocation and the pledge. The invocation will be led by Liz Caraway, the pledge led by Jan Llewellyn.
Oh God, thank you and praise you for all your mighty works. You are good and faithful and loving, and for that I'm so grateful. Heavy on my heart is the need to pray for our world community just as much as I do for our local community. Tonight, as I pray for the leaders who are sitting before us, I want to also lift up all the many leaders who are spread across our town, as well as leaders among our state, our nation, and those from all countries and continents worldwide. Lord, provide them with the wisdom of good decisions and respect for all life, while focusing on the best interest of their people. Psalms 133:1 reminds us how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Unity is a blessing and results in blessing, and for this I'm so thankful. For us in this room tonight, as we enter into witness a time of decision-making and deliberation, I thank you for blessing us with leaders who are wise and just, who are concerned about the welfare of our community. We thank you, Lord, for giving our local government leaders wisdom to identify and address concerns that impact our community. I lift up in prayer our city council members, mayor, and city staff as they meet and discuss matters pertaining to our city. And in doing so, I ask you give them guidance, reassurance, and also rest. And lastly, I pray over this meeting that it'll be both productive and effective. In your most gracious name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you both very much. Now we'll move on to the public comment section of the meeting. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. We just ask that you signed up prior to this meeting and that you keep those comments to no more than 3 minutes. Also, please understand that no discussion or final action will be taken by the city council. We do have one person that signed up to speak tonight, Mr. Gilbertson. If you'll please step to the podium.
I am Keith Gilbertson. I do not live in Temple, but I own property in Temple, and I live very close to Temple city boundary. And my first comment, I might have been misled. I read somewhere that you guys are considering transferring money from the property tax fund to the general fund. And I don't see that on the order for tonight. So I apologize, but I'm saying emphatically no. If we have excess money in our property tax fund, guess what we need to do with it? We need to send it back to the taxpayers who put it in there. Thank you very much for that. We've owned property in Temple for about 12 years, and during that time, our taxes have doubled, nearly doubled. And it's a little bit discouraging. The other thought I have is that I believe that the city of Temple has been operating in the black until 2016. At that point, we dipped into borrowing money to get by. We can't live long-term operating in the red. And I don't think our city should either. It's going to have an impact somewhere down the road. So I think we need to try to rein that in. The second issue I have is trash. We have a picture of trash. There is a picture of trash. And Tim, I do appreciate you working on this issue, but this is a recurring issue that happens out there on West Adams, west of 2271. And I know you have some rules, some code about how much trash people can put out. But in that area along West Adams, it makes me feel like we're a second-class city. It really, really detracts hugely. So I think the code needs to be looked at, and then we need to look at enforcement. Somebody needs to be held accountable for that kind of conduct.
Has that since been picked up?
I don't think so.
Not yet. Okay.
I appreciate you trying to work that.
Sure.
These people are busy too, so I know that,
Sure. No, it'll get done.
but I'm just saying this is a recurring thing. But I think we need to look at our code and we need to look at the enforcement. These are last couple things are maybe history. I want to keep within my 3 minutes, but we have a housing thing here going on that has changed the flavor of this city hugely. And we moved here in 2009. It really had a small town appeal to me. I love that. It's gone. And it breaks my heart. I just don't like that. The traffic situation, and it all goes along, we've got a housing boom. And I know that you guys are working those issues, but I don't see much, I don't hear much about a medium-term and a long-term plan, how we're going to control this, and particularly apartments. And I remember back to about a year and a half ago, when you changed the definition of an apartment complex from seniors only to anybody that wants. Not good. Traffic out there is crazy and our schools are going to have trouble. So apartments, I think you need to look at medium-term and long-term apartment plans or program. Another thing I'm concerned about, or we're concerned about, is the makeup of the city council. Now, I don't want to be stirring up too much here, but when you look at some of the areas of involvement in our economy and in our local economy, it appeared like it might be a conflict of interest at times. And I'm talking about real estate. I'm talking about insurance agents. I'm talking about construction companies, stuff like that, where I think the council needs to look at what could be possibly perceived as a conflict of interest. The last thing is DEI.
Mr. Gilbertson, your time is up. So, but and we can't have just a general conversation here. So you raised a lot of issues. One thing that I do want to, am I talking too loud? Is this ringing? It's reverberating back on me. One thing I do want to make very clear is that it is against the law for a city to operate, for a city not to have a balanced budget. So if you're looking at budget documents and it appears that less revenue is coming in than what's being spent, the way that budget is balanced is that we are pulling, no, it's not debt. We are pulling money leftover, quote unquote, money from the previous year. We always, it's always been a practice of this council. It's always been a practice for a finance director that we estimate revenues and overestimate expenses.
I like it.
And that ends up creating a surplus. And so a surplus is pulled forward from the previous year into the next year. It's just like transferring money from one account to another, right? One year to another. Money's pulled from the previous year into the current year to balance the budget. This city has never, in my 11 years on council, 11 budget cycles, this city has never, ever had a budget deficit.
What I'm talking about is the money we spend on interest or whatever it is, bonds. We spend money on that. And that's the part I don't agree with.
Okay, very
Thank you
good.
very much.
Always a balanced budget though, every year. All right, very good. Item 3 is to recognize the Deputy Court Administrator, Melissa LeBoy, for receiving her Level 3 Municipal Court Clerk certification. Do we?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is too loud. It
Oh,
really
you're good.
sounds loud up
You're
here.
good.
My name is Landra Solonsky. I'm the Court Administrator for the City of Seguin. I'm also the President of the Texas Court Clerks Association, and I have the pleasure of serving on the Clerks Education Committee. So I wrote some stuff down because this is a big deal for Melissa tonight. So bear with me. I want you to understand what she's gone through to accomplish her Level 3 certification. So on behalf of TCCA, it is my pleasure to be here with you tonight. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share some awesome news. I'm here tonight to announce that approximately 3,000 court clerks in the state of Texas, 3,000, that's a lot of us. You have one of only 139 that are certified. Certified Municipal Court Clerks, working for you and the citizens of Temple. Miss Melissa LaBoy became the 135th clerk to gain her level 3 certification on August the 22nd, 2023. There's a reason there are so few clerks at this level. To qualify for the title of Certified Municipal Court Clerk, a clerk must complete the requirements for each level, level 1, level 2, and level 3. These requirements include, are you listening? You remember, okay.
Remembers probably.
Completing 40 hours of continuing education, passing a 4-hour exam at each level, so 1, 2, and 3. Additionally, a clerk must attend a 24-hour assessment clinic, complete 40 hours of court observation, then write and submit a journal on those observations, and then attend a 12-hour court administrator seminar. Melissa's involvement in this rigorous course of study confirms her dedication to the judicial system and the city of Temple. And I know she's ready to have her weekends back because we talked about it. It's a lot of studying. So on behalf of the Texas Court Clerks Association, in conjunction with the Texas Municipal Courts Association, the Texas Municipal Courts Education Center, and Texas State University in San Marcos, I am pleased to present Melissa with her Certified Municipal Court Clerk Certificate. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
They're not finished.
Yeah, I feel like you and Tracy should do a picture with them as well.
Okay.
One more picture. One more picture.
Can you imagine how he looks at the numbers for the municipal building? When he understands nothing.
Before we move on, I'd like to recognize the folks in Leadership Temple. Who all here is with Leadership Temple? Would raise your hand. So Leadership Temple people have to go to a number of these civic meetings like this. Y'all probably picked a good one tonight. I think our meeting's pretty short. I bet y'all read the agenda before you came out. But yeah, they're already learning, right? But Leadership Temple is a great program sponsored through the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you guys for taking your time. Be sure, I always say this when I speak to you, thank your employers for giving you the time off during the days also. That's it's not inexpensive, but it's a great experience for you guys. So thank y'all for being here. All right, next thing is consent agenda. All items on this consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from that consent agenda at the request of that council member and will be considered separately. During workshop today, we did decide that we are going to pull item 4L tonight for separate consideration. So council, if you have any discussion, let's hear it. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda, which is items 4A through 4T minus item 4L.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. The consent agenda 4A through 4T minus 4L passes 5 votes to 0. Now moving on to item 4L. 4L reads to consider adopting a resolution authorizing contract amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with MRB Group, Inc. of Temple for an easement preparation related to the design of the 41st Street to 57th Street utility improvement. in the amount of 42,500. It was requested by Public Works that we pull this item tonight for consideration later. So council, I'll entertain a motion on tabling item 4L.
I'll move to table item 4L.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 4L passes 5 votes to 0. Moving on to item 5, which is the regular agenda. We have a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from commercial to planned development multifamily dwelling 1 on 0.321 plus or minus acres, described as Lot 7 and Lot 8, Block 17 of Temple Heights, addressed as 1202 South 53rd. Mr. Chandler.
Yes, and Mayor, if you wouldn't mind reading in the next item too.
Sure.
Going to present them together. It's the
All right.
same owner and they're right across the street and almost identical projects.
Item 6 reads, it's the first reading and public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from Central C to planned development multifamily dwelling 1 on 0.25 plus or minus acres, described as Lot 12, Block 12 of Temple Heights, addressed as 1118 South 53rd.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. and Thank
Yeah.
you, council. And so here are the two proposed multifamily projects on South 53rd Street and Avenue L. And so the first one, case number 33, is on the south side of L, and the next case, 34, is on the north side. And so here are some photos, starting with case 33 on the south side. And so starting clockwise in the top left-hand corner, that's the site. And then adjacent property to the south that is occupied by Caliber Collision. And just looking at adjacent property nearby to the west. And then once again, clockwise property on the north side of Avenue L. And so now looking at the other case, number 34, on the north side of Avenue L, and you can see there's residential. So next picture to the right, top right, that abuts a single family home as opposed to the commercial abutting property with the other case. And you'll also see on these sites that there are a number of trees that are worth preserving that the developer would like to preserve. And so you can also see the how the alley looks. And once again, the properties are currently zoned commercial, which does not allow multifamily. And so the south side multifamily complex would consist of 8 units, 6 units on the north side. This property was platted in 1910, so it was an early subdivision. Our Development Review Committee did review this at their July 24th meeting, and both of these properties are located within Temple ISD. And so looking at the site plan, because these are both proposed planned development districts with a binding site plan. And so the one on the south, this is the one with 8 units, 2-story. So the lot size is 14,000 square feet. Multifamily allows a maximum density of 15 dwelling units. They're actually asking for 25, a density of 25, but it's only 8 units. It's only because that's units per acre. This is basically 1/3 of an acre. So it's 8 units, but I know, Susan, I see you're perplexed, but.
Oh, no,
okay.
I'm sort of following.
Okay, but so it won't be 25 units, it'd just be 8. It's just on a small lot, which means the density is higher. So,
I follow.
okay, great. And so once again, multifamily 1 only allows 15, but the plan development would allow this density for the 8 units on this piece of property, but 2 stories, which is what multifamily allows. They also want to preserve the large trees that are on site. Landscaping of 27% of the lot area, 5% is required, and amounting to park fees at $225 per unit at $1,800. And so when you look at the site plan, you can see that on the right is 53rd and Avenue L, on the top, the north. And so these buildings, really to comply with the neighborhood plan, be pushed close to the street, having the parking behind it. They would have balconies, the buildings would be articulated, street trees, sidewalks. And so the other project is very similar, except it's a even smaller lot, 10,920 square feet. And so only 6 units in the 2 stories. So you can see it's a narrower lot. They're only able to fit essentially 2 rows of 3. And so, but by code, that would be a maximum density of 24 dwelling units per acre. Once again, a desire for preservation of existing trees, landscaping at 26%, and park fees at $1,300 and $1,300.50. And so you can see access from 53rd. So entering from 53rd, exiting by way of the alley. And our neighborhood plan encourages that where it's feasible. And this is certainly a good location for that. And so looking at the background, and the comprehensive plan identifies this area as urban residential. And so this is very much in compliance with what is envisioned in the comprehensive plan. The thoroughfare plan does not identify either Avenue L or 53rd as anything other than a local street. No conflicts were identified for this area in the mobility master plan. No trails are required per the trails master plan. However, a designated pedestrian connector in the neighborhood plan has been identified along Avenue L on one side of the street. And so that would be provided by one of the projects, but not necessary for the other. Sidewalks would be required by both projects along 53rd, however. And so I mentioned the neighborhood plan. This is the Temple Heights neighborhood plan, but also part of it, the northern lot would be within the I-35 corridor plan that is going to be kicked off soon. The Temple Heights neighborhood plan, of course, on the south side also identifies this as commercial edge. Variety and uses is recommended within the commercial edge, but this multifamily would provide a transition from commercial properties and the residential neighborhood. The site plan does incorporate elements from the neighborhood plan, including the rear parking, which we talked about, use of the alley, and the Avenue L sidewalk. So notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet, 2 sets of notices. For the one on the south, 21 notices were sent out and 1 was received in favor. And you can see that is from somebody not even directly abutting the property, but towards the edge, the A right there in the bottom left-hand corner of the circle, which identifies which property owners were sent a notice. And then the property to the north, 17 notices were sent out, and we have not received any responses. So staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval, and they did this by a vote of 8-0 at their October 2nd meeting. And that is with the subject to the following conditions. And so I'm going to go through these, but they're almost identical. For the southern lot, which I'll start there first, the northern lot, number 34, will be second. So starting with compliance with the multifamily 1 zoning district standards, with the exception of the increased density that we talked about, but that would set it at 8 units, maximum of 8 units. Also a side setback of 5 feet along Avenue L, to allow for preservation of trees, but also kind of pushing some landscaping to the edge as well, and having street trees in the sidewalks. Also, the parking per UDC section 7.5, requesting the ability to approve a reduction from the 2 parking spaces per unit requirement. So that would be on this one, 16 spaces required, but reduce it. The site plan is showing 14 to be able to preserve some of the trees that we saw. That's the applicant is requesting that. They are comfortable that that is going to be sufficient with their future residents. You know, some of those units are going to be occupied by one person utilizing the bedroom and the office. Some may not have one car between 2 people, but point is the developer thinks that that is sufficient. We agree and want to ask for council's consideration of blessing a reduction in the parking. Also, the 5-foot sidewalk along 53rd Street and Avenue L, building articulation along Avenue L to prevent just a giant box. So having balconies and other forms of articulation that will benefit those residents as well. Landscaping per the site plan, preserving existing trees where feasible. Staff review the elevations administratively, so not sending them back to you all, but working with the applicant when that comes in. And then also allowing the planning director to approve minor changes to the site plan. And then lastly, this is per P and Z. At the October 2nd meeting, they desired that we include fencing for screening the refuse collection bins, whether it's a dumpster or whether they're individual bins, that there is a screened location for them. So that is case 33 on the south side. And then case 34, the only changes are highlighting yellow here. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. The 24 dwelling units per acre density. So that's 6 units for that lot. Also, the 5-foot sidewalk just along 53rd Street, not along L. And then the last one is an 8-foot privacy fence on the north property line adjacent to that single family residential. So that's per code, but they've agreed to do an 8-foot privacy fence rather than the 6-foot. And that's all that I have, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions?
Brian,
Yeah.
the trash day, are they going to have to take those trash bins out of that screened area and put them in a certain spot in order for it to be picked
So
up?
yes, ma'am. Assuming that that we're talking about just individual trash cans per unit,
Mhm.
then the tenant would be responsible for pulling them to the street or in the alley, you know, wherever solid waste picks up, and bringing them back and at the end of the day.
But it's a shared area for them.
Right, exactly. So if there'd be 8 for one, assuming that dumpsters are not preferred, but you know, no more than 8 for the one on the south and 6 for the one on the north.
Brian, you all addressed one of my questions, so thank you for that on the refuse collection. I first of all would like to thank the developer for the articulation concept to get away from the big box.
Mhm.
We really appreciate that. How does this, and the preservation of the trees, that is so important. Thank you for that. How does this fit in with the Temple Heights neighborhood plan?
Yes, great question. So the Temple Heights plan calls for commercial edge, but that also does include some urban residential. It's not all commercial.
I knew that you had addressed that. I mean, I heard that part of your presentation. So
Yes, ma'am.
it does fit basically with their plan.
It
Okay,
does, and the comprehensive plan.
right. These are rentals
Presumably,
designed for rentals?
presumably,
Is
because
the
they're not,
developer here?
let's see if
So we don't,
Cheryl Maxwell is the case manager,
okay.
so.
We don't
perhaps she
know
can
what the
address if
rental
she-
rates are.
But we don't, but presumably the rental, we are not aware of them wanting to create a condominium
Okay.
association.
it- I believe that the school district TISD has made statements in opposition to more multifamily housing in Temple.
They have,
Did they respond to this?
they did not,
We sent it to them, but no response?
correct.
That's peculiar.
Perhaps just for smaller infill projects.
Maybe not. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Tim.
Oh, good, okay. Great. Lena or David, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Brian, for detailed presentation. We're good. If there are any more questions, we're happy to answer them as well.
Do either of you know the rental rates?
I don't know the rental rates.
As much as they can get.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
And I think for infill lots over there in that neighborhood, with that kind of density, I think that the school district would be happy with the revenue generated by
Well,
that.
maybe. I
And,
don't know.
New construction, in my opinion, new construction over there would be, I think would be good for the neighborhood, good for the city, good for good for any taxing entities versus what's there now. I'm sure.
Appropriate use next to
Yeah.
I-35
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Appropriate use next to I-35.
And I know from surveys that housing affordability is a big issue, and this is about as close as you're gonna get. Not that anything's affordable, but
True.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Chandler. I will open the public hearing on both items 5 and 6. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. We ask that you step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. I'm sorry, just your name for the record. Or raise your hand on the virtual platform.
My name is Dana Farrar. I live at 306 Mitchell. What's a park fee? Both of these properties had a park fee. Is that a parking?
No.
No, good question. He was asking what the park fees are. And so all residential by our Unified Development Code requires a park fee at $225 per
Parks-
unit.
Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation,
Right,
yes.
not
So
a parking fee to park
Right,
your
right.
car.
So thank you. For our public park system, the fees go into investment into nearby public parks within this neighborhood.
Okay, is this a yearly situation?
No, sir, it's just one. It's a one-time deal, usually done at the subdivision plat stage by the developer.
It was just a question.
Yeah, no,
Good-
and that's-
Very good question.
Yeah, and that's not anything out of the ordinary.
Thank you.
You bet.
Yep, thank
What
you.
is it? It's like $225 per unit.
Yes,
So even if it was a single family home in a neighborhood of 50 and
That's
they
right.
weren't going to put in their own park, then they'd pay $50, 50 units times $225.
that
in park
is
fees.
correct.
Yep. Typical stuff.
Mhm.
Very good. Anything else? Anybody else wish to speak in the public hearing? Anybody on the platform? Okay, very good. Then, council, if there's no further discussion amongst ourselves or with Mr. Chandler, I will close the public hearing on both items 5 and 6 and entertain a motion on item 5 alone.
I move to approve item 5 with the conditions 1 through 9 as was presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Pilkington. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote on item 5. Item 5 passes 5 votes to 0. Council, any further discussion on item 6? Then if not, I'll entertain a motion on item 6.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve item 6, essentially as presented by Mr. Chandler. I believe there were 9 with the 9 items included.
I'll second that one too.
I have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Council, please cast your vote on item 6. Item 6 passes 5 votes to 0. It is currently 5:41, and I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending.